Hello and welcome to Trev Talks Tech, another non-musical edition for you today. So yes, just clearing up all the jobs that I've been meaning to do, and we'll take in a technical vein, and this is one of them. I'm thinking of actually putting up some of my other stuff. I've got a couple of older ones that I mean to bring up as well. Now, I'm in my little garage workshop space here. I apologise if you can hear some noises off, because I have a thin roller door between me and the outside world and all the goings on of a typical Saturday. Anyway, so what's today's video about? Well, many years ago, it feels like quite a few years ago at least, I bought a weather station off of Amazon badged as a company called Youshiko. So as you can imagine, like many things, this is a Chinese made unit and it worked fine. It actually worked fine for many years, but then I found that what was it, probably 6 months to a year ago, suddenly I stopped getting external temperature and humidity readings. And when that happened, of course, that meant I lost a lot of the trending information and so on. Now, I thought about repairing it at the time, but in the end I took the easier route and ended up buying a new unit from a company called Bresser. And Bresser, if you pardon, Bresser, that's a German company who make exactly the same device. And I don't know, I will admit, because I haven't, freely admit, I've not researched this. I might put something in the notes afterwards. Whether Youshiko basically made a carbon copy, or whether it's actually the same unit but maybe a better grade of stock, I don't know. Either way, what it turns out has happened to this external sensor module is that there is one chip that controls the sensor and humidity. One sensor which goes inside these fins. Obviously the fins here are designed to some extent to try to isolate the temperature sensor from wind chill and the like, so you get an accurate temperature reading. Obviously the anemometer here, I've got the anemometer and the wind direction gauge, and of course it has a rain gauge which spills into there, and in the bottom of this there's a little sort of spoon-like bucket, and when it fills up it over-tips and lets water out at the bottom here, and by counting those it can count how much rain has fallen over this surface and therefore what the average rainfall level is. So yeah, I mean, quite a good unit. Now, obviously, I don't really need this because I bought the Bresser one, and it turns out that it will interface directly with the Youshiko branded display unit as well. So now I have two of those, one in my studio where some previous videos have been filmed, and one in the house. But I thought it was always a shame not to be able to get this up and running, and well, I went on various sites to look for a replacement device, and what I have here in this bag, or ESD bag, is a replacement sensor. So I'm just going to take the cover off here and have a look. Now, I've already once taken the lid off the sensor, and basically what I found was a tiny, you can barely even see this. I'm just going to try and hold it up for you. It's probably not in focus, but this tiny little unit, you can see if I just put it against that, maybe against this foil, it's not too reflective in the camera. You can see it's a tiny little unit. The actual sensor side of this is probably about a quarter of the size of my little fingernail. So it's very, very small, but it's a sensor like this that it lives in here. It's a 4-pin sensor, so and looks very much like the original. So what I'm going to do is take out the original unit, which I believe to have failed, and I'm going to replace it with this device. and then we'll see whether I actually get it working again. So Youshikos are quite, they do actually fail like this. I think I found this from eBay at a combined temperature and combined temperature and utility, beg your pardon, humidity sensor. RDIT6, it says on here. I don't know whether that's the identity number. Anyway, so it's an eBay purchase, and yeah, I'm going to replace that on this unit. So let's get into it. I'm going to change the camera angle around so you're looking down, and then we'll take it from there. Until we'll be doing this in two parts, as the disassembly and the reconnection is probably going to be two separate things with my tight schedule around stuff, that other things that are going on. So let's do it. Okay, here we go. So I've got a couple of screwdriver sizes that I think will be suitable for this job. As you can see, there's a few things that will definitely have to come off so that I can get access to everything. I'm going to take the whole thing apart. I'm not just going to, at least to the extent that is necessary to access the whole unit, because I think when I get down to it, there will be a need for that. Now, there's one little screw on top of the wind direction vane, and there it is, but I'm not sure if that's going to be enough to get the whole unit off. It looks pretty secure in there, and there's also a small, I don't know if it's a counterweight or something, on the other side of this. I'm going to think, well, maybe it is, but I'm just going to check whether it for some reason is preventing me from removing the whole thing. Now I need a spudger for this, ideally. Okay, so a spudger was not found, but actually it turns out when I unplugged this, that what it contains actually is just what I suspected, a steel counterweight. I don't know whether with a little bit of gentle persuasion I can actually get the this to lift off. It would appear not. I've got a feeling therefore that the whole thing needs to come away from the screws which are lower down. So I'm going to take those off. I'm going to take off each of these and just see where that gets us. Oops, apologies for that. I literally just head-butted the camera. Now, it turns out that that plastic is also attached further down here to other screws. Looks like I'm going to have to take the whole base off. It looks like the whole thing has been basically cast in one go. Now that leaves me actually taking off the bit here, where this is where the actual temperature sensor is. I'll show you this in a bit more detail once I can just get this off of here. There's like a stack of plates that comes up together. There we go. And there it is. That's the whole in-vane thing, but you can see in there that there's actually a ribbon cable that goes through there, and this is well and truly stuck on the top. Now it's evident to me that this is not quite the same as the unit I'm proposing to use, which for a moment had evaded me. It's actually slightly larger. In fact, it's considerably larger, but I have to wonder whether, and it's not really, the sensor wasn't very expensive, and I have to wonder whether that a like-for-like replacement will actually work, and if it does work, whether or not it's actually calibrated as well. So this is obviously going to take a little bit more in the way of disassembly than I first imagined. Let's just use a different screwdriver. Okay, let's just have that screw up. Let's screw up for a minute. Apologies, I'm just very conscious that the camera is maybe not in the right place. There may also be a screw inside the battery compartment, so let's have that up and see what's going on in there. Actually no, but nevertheless I'll keep the battery compartment screw off. There could be a much longer, oh yeah, there are screws down here, but I need a longer, thinner screwdriver such as this one to actually get to them. So here we go. There we go. I'm standing here in my workshop today. Apologies if there's any movement in the camera as well. One end of the tripod is resting slightly on the back plane of the workshop bench here, and it might be moving a tad. The benches in this room come from Machine Mart. Machine Mart is great for a lot of things. I've got a lot of kit from there. Thoroughly recommend going to have a look at it. But it was my choice here, maybe not to buy the most quality quality benching on offer. I actually used to have a really quite sturdy homemade bench in here. It was made of a sort of U-section steel girder, almost a sort of pretty much steel lintel sort of level of strength, and but when I changed everything around in here, it was a little bit too clumsy and a bit too big, and didn't really, it was just awkward. I just decided that it didn't really go in here, and I needed some tool space and everything. I just, you know, I guess I just fancied a change, and maybe I didn't get the right thing for in here. But one stubborn screw out of the whole assembly. That's coming up now, and there we go. This is very, very far from being the easiest thing to dismantle, but it is actually coming away. Every last screw wants to pick a fight. There we go. Right, at last. Okay, and there it is. There is the unit undone, and screws, of course, have just flown everywhere, as you might expect. And I'm going to take this further, because obviously I need to be able to, there's a little ribbon cable under there. There's obviously some more dismantling to do before I am anywhere near that sensor. There's a, yeah, so there's that 4-way ribbon cable there, but it's not to be confused with the one that is going in here. That's obviously from the I've obviously got the voltage from the anemometer there, but there's another ribbon cable coming from the wind direction frame, and there's something in there which I don't know if I can just get that up. I might just try to get that up. Doesn't look like it's actually going to be too hard to do, to be honest. There we go. So that's the, there we go. Much more extensive. Now, there we go. That's, we can see everything that's going on. And that'll be the all that section there is the wireless connection, and I can see now SDA ground SCL, so it's using that same format that that same sensor format you can find, well, on Raspberry Pi and that kind of thing. I can never remember what it's called, but it's yeah, it's a similar sort of thing. Now I guess that does, at least with the printing on the PCB. I don't know if you can see this there, but there is some printing on the PCB there that is going to facilitate me identifying the terminals I need. What I don't know at this stage is if the terminals on that new device are actually the same. I'm going to have to go back and see if I can locate a data sheet for this. I've got obviously I don't think there's literally no printing on that whatsoever, so I need to go back and find the data sheet for that, and then we will continue with the process. So that's getting there for now. We've started the dismantling process. It's actually not been as difficult as it might first have appeared, but we'll take a few more bits off. There is the rain bucket, for example, and obviously hasn't seen much rain in a while, but there you can see how that works. And obviously a little magnet or something on the other end. There's obviously a little hall sensor or something in there which sees an impulse every time the rain bucket empties. So yeah, quite a neat little device, isn't it? And obviously I do have the Bresser version of this happily sitting on top of my my studio right now, doing what this one is doing. There's a few screws there that I'd need to take out if I intend to get at this any more closely. So I'll leave it there for now, and I will return to this in a little while. Right, here we go again. Now I've been on a bit of a side quest since I last saw you. I had this is my little in-car USB supply, and yeah, over time the cap has fallen off and the innards started to fall out as well. Plus it has an extremely bright blue LED when the cap being missing, which I don't know where that went. So a couple of squirts of glue gun in there to hold the USB sockets in place, and that's now good to go back in the car and hopefully continue service. Now let's get back to the main subject matter here, and let's see if I can get that in there. Nope, in. Okay, so that's as close as we get with this camera. So the circuit board now, then we've got the, just going to bring this up to you. So this little ribbon cable here needs to come off because that's the one that leads to the sensor, and then I can get hopefully a good look at that. Now I'm not in the studio, and so I don't have my desoldering tool here, but then this is not perhaps the best application for it. Anyway, I do have my wonderful old Antex soldering iron, which is still going. I lost the clip that goes on the end of the soldering element. Not sure where that went, but fortunately I found an Allen key with a spring holder at the top of it, which wasn't really attached to anything anymore, and so I'm using that instead. So I just need to get these 4 off of here, and then we'll carry on. Also, while putting the spring on that soldering element and clipping it off, I somehow managed to stick my finger. So here I am with insulating tape round it while I attempt to remove the solder on here, and it's just don't really, to be honest with you probably don't need to use the solder extractor. It's just to try and help to get some of the solder away from the board. It's actually helping much, to tell you the truth. I think what I need more than that is just a small pick, just a pair of tweezers just to get the wire up. Here we go. Oh no, did something right, really. Wait one moment. There we are. There we go. Just pick that up and bring that off the board. There we go. Just tidy those up a little bit. Look a bit manky now after I've been at them. think they've got a bit of plastic glue gun type stuff there as well, actually. There you go. That's brought that out. While I'm here, let's just re-tin these so it will be nice and easy to put them back. Let's get these terminals re-tinned. There we go. Oops. Right, so after some messing about trying to find some suitable wiring here, so I've actually got, if my solder doesn't fall on the floor, I've got some wires here which are actually from the these are from a Raspberry Pi project kit, and they're intended for connecting other sensors that I have upstairs in my other room. And so what I'm going to do here is just tin these off and then see if I can't, I'll get these soldered up to the existing sensor, and we'll just see if it does actually still work. I had a good look at it. It doesn't look like I've actually messed it up. Trying to peel all of that other stuff off. So we'll give that some nice short ends there, and you will see the result in a bit because I will have all of this wired up. I've got the pin ends here which can go into some breadboard with a Raspberry Pi, and this unit here, well, the pins on this are so small, what I really could do with is something like a Molex connector, and then we'll see whether this sensor has survived all the ravages of now the batteries. This unit takes the battery compartment is for 3 volts, so I don't know whether this is going to be a 3.3 volt unit, but or whether it has the circuitry to make it a 5 volt unit. But either way, I suppose I can test it on 3.3, see if I get anything back. But it does have these standard SCL and SDA connect pins, which I know on other sensors I'm using are a 5 volt line. Oh, I'm just worried about that connecting. There we go. Oh no. Try again, Trevor. You can probably hear the noises off as well, Ponty. So everything about working in the garage here, and it's the reason I didn't do it during the mixer video, which if anyone's seen, you will. Okay, I've just jumped out of my skin because there's an Amazon Echo in the room, and for no reason at all it just started whispering at me. It must have been something I said, and it did it in whisper mode. That was freaky. Oh god. So let's take the sensor upstairs and see what we can do. I'm sure there's something. Let's turn everything off and see you in a bit. I've been looking at trying to get this up and running, and it's finally behaving now. So just to talk you through what's going on here. Now I've tried the sensor that was originally in here, and sadly that didn't work. So what I've actually done is bear with me, sorry, I'm just in a bit. Okay, so there is the sensor, and it's hooked into that ribbon cable, and it's on using the I2C interface with the SCL and SDA data lines, and that's plugged into this Raspberry Pi with the Pi-on Man case on it, which by the way is just brilliant. I absolutely love this thing, and so that's working really well. And as you can see, we've got the sensor on there, and it took me a little while to find the right thing because I've been using something called the sort of universal maker kit from a company called Sunfounder, but that uses CircuitPython and also something called Adafruit. And the Adafruit code libraries are different to ones that I was finding online. The ones I was finding online were all to do with MicroPython, and you can't find those libraries within the Adafruit system that I've been using. So, but with a little bit of persistence and I must admit, with the aid of ChatGPT as well, I do finally have data. And I also know what the address of this should be. Now that is the only thing that might cock this up, of course, is what I don't know yet is whether the sensor that is going to have a compatible address with the previous one. So like I say, I couldn't get, unfortunately, the other sensor didn't respond at all, even though I had it set up in just the same way. And I did try scanning for devices as well for the addresses, and the addresses simply didn't appear. So I'm forced to conclude that the sensor on the unit just wasn't playing ball. So maybe it was just had it and was rubbish after all. Perhaps the state of the cable didn't help with that. There could be a couple of issues there. Anyway, so I now have this sensor up and running, and it is giving me what look like, knowing the temperature in this room. I can't actually gauge the humidity in this room. I'm indoors, but the temperature certainly feels about right, and the humidity is probably about right. And certainly if I hold my fingers over the sensor, you can see that the temperature is going up very quickly indeed, and the humidity just a tad. And if I breathe on the sensor, I'm just going to go and breathe on this little sensor here, and you can just see the thing. By the way, there it is. Tiny little device. Okay, I'm just going to breathe on that, and you'll see the data is actually going to and what you might note here, the humidity has just, I'm going to yawn and I'm going to make it go up. So I've just breathed on the sensor and it put the humidity up there. It peaked at about 66%. So I know that the sensor is being read and is working. Excuse all the bad handheld camera work here. Right, so let's the next job then will be to take this and to fit it back into the sensor module. And then what we have to hope, because I really have no idea about this, is that the address that the code on that board in the weather sensor is expecting is actually an AHT25 address, a 3C hexadecimal address, because that's what you get with this. In fact, I can just show you that, and we'll just interrupt the keyboard. Right, so let's just go back to this I2C detect, and you can see there's two addresses. There's 38 and 3C. 38, I am reliably informed, ChatGPT really is fantastic for this. That is the address for the little OLED screen that is running on this unit. So it's using this same I2C addressing as well. And there 3C, which is what that says. 3C is the address for the sensor. So good news that it works on this layout. I'm really chuffed about that. What I don't know is if it's going to work, if that same address is going to work on the module in the garage. And obviously the only way I'm going to find out is to connect this up, try to make a good job of installing the wiring to the sensor, because trust me, it's not great at the moment. So do a proper job of that, and then connect the sensor, reinstall the sensor to the to that particular unit, back in its little housing, and then put that all back together, and we'll see if it plays ball. I'll have to borrow one of the units to see if it will work, and if it does, that's great. If not, I've still got the other Bresser one, and both displays will still have to work with that. I'll take some close-up pictures and inset these into this particular roll, so you've got a better view of what's going on there. Okay, right, that's enough of that. Okay folks, what's happening? Well, I'm back in the workshop again, and I'm looking at these two sensors here. I'm on my phone, so I'm using the focus. The other camera just can't focus quickly enough and far enough. So I've got on the top here, this one here is the original sensor from the Youshiko unit. The one underneath it is the AHT25 that I bought on eBay for a few quid, just to see what I could get out of it, and it clearly works. It works very well with the Raspberry Pi, and just trying to think of things I can do with it. I do have a bit of a project in mind, and I will be reporting on that in due course. Now the one above it, get as close as I can into that, you can see the mess of the soldering I've made on that, and also trying to get the cap off has been interesting. Now it turns out that under that little cap, which was covered with a little piece of white rubber film, that is the actual sensor, and the actual sensor is an SHT C3, SHT Sierra Hotel Tango Charlie 3. So that it's, I'm going to search for those in a bit. ChatGPT reliably informs me that they are available for about £2 to £3, and that should be a completely drop-in replacement for the existing. Now, and this is all on the assumption that the sensor was even the problem in the first place. Well, whether it was or not, it's probably worth getting a new one, and I'll probably order some ribbon cable as well, so I can make good the the connection to it from the weather station. So the AHT25, I'm not going to try putting that in. Evidently the AHT25 has a different I2C address. It's actually 38 is the address for that, and the SHT series uses an address of about 70 or 77. So I know first up that these two are not going to be compatible. There's no intercompatibility here, and I can't reprogram the address on the Youshiko sensor, so I'm not even going to try. So yeah, I will be doing that, and then I will show you what happens with the replacement unit. Okay, so that's part one of the weather sensor repair investigation, and I hope you'll join me for part two. Thanks very much, and see you next time.